June wiped sweat from his forehead as he stared out the small window of the ship. The rust-colored planet grew larger by the minute. His heart beat fast in his chest. After 6 months of space travel, he would be the first human to live among the Iridians. "Landing sequence in 5 minutes," said the computer voice. "Please secure all items." June checked his bag one more time. He had packed light, just some clothes, basic tools, and a few small gifts from Earth. The photo of his family was safely tucked in his pocket. He took a deep breath. "You can do this," he told himself. "Just don't mess up." At 32, June was young for such an important mission, but his engineering skills and calm personality had made him the perfect choice for humanity's first cultural exchange with the desert aliens. The ship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Through the window, June could see an endless landscape of red sand and rocky mountains. No oceans, no green forests, no blue skies. Just different shades of orange, red, and brown stretching to the horizon. With a soft thud, the ship landed on the flat surface of the spaceport. June gathered his things and walked to the exit door. His mouth felt dry. Was it the recycled air of the ship or his nerves? Probably both. The door opened with a hiss. Hot, dry air rushed in, making June blink. The heat hit him like a wall. It must have been at least 100 degrees, and so dry that he felt his skin tighten. A small group of Iridians waited at the bottom of the ramp. They stood straight and still, their smooth skin a pale orange color that almost matched the sand. Their large, dark eyes didn't blink as they watched him walk down. One Iridian stepped forward. She was shorter than June by a head, with delicate features and darker markings around her eyes that reminded him of freckles. "Welcome to Eridus. I am Nera, assigned to guide and study you during your stay." Her voice was higher than a human's but clear. She spoke perfect English with only a slight accent that made the sounds longer. June bowed slightly, then remembered the briefing. Iridians didn't bow. He quickly straightened and held up his empty hands, palms out, the traditional Iridi greeting showing he carried no water to share or steal. "Thank you for having me. I'm Jum Kim, representing Earth. It's an honor to be here." Nera tilted her head, studying him with those large, unblinking eyes. "You are leaking already," she said, pointing to his forehead where beads of sweat had formed again. June wiped it away quickly, feeling embarrassed. "Sorry. Humans cool themselves by sweating water through our skin when we're hot." A murmur ran through the group of Iridians. One of them said something in their language that made the others step back slightly. Nera's expression didn't change, but her voice became more formal. "Interesting. We have much to learn about each other. Please follow me to the decontamination chamber before entering our city. We must ensure no harmful Earth bacteria enter our water system." As they walked across the landing pad, June noticed how smoothly the Iridians moved, how little their bodies seemed to work even in the intense heat. His shirt was already soaked with sweat. "Our scientists are very interested in your species' relationship with water," Nera said. "Your planet has so much of it, yet our scans show your body contains almost as much water as ours, despite evolving on a world where water falls from the sky." June smiled at her curious tone. "Yes, our bodies are about 60% water. Earth has lots of it. Oceans cover most of our planet." "Oceans." Nera repeated the word as if tasting it. "Standing water so vast you cannot see across it. It's difficult to imagine such waste." June opened his mouth to explain that oceans weren't wasteful, but stopped himself. He was here to learn, not to defend Earth's ways. He had been warned that Iridians saw water very differently. "I have much to learn about your world," he said instead. Nera made a small gesture with her hand that might have been approval. "Yes, and your first lesson begins now. On Eridus, every drop of water is tracked, treasured, and sacred. Remember this, and your stay will be productive." June nodded, not realizing how soon and how dramatically this lesson would be tested. After the decontamination process, Nera led June through the city. Unlike Earth cities with tall buildings, the Aridi cities spread out low across the desert. Most structures were built half underground to stay cool. "This will be your home," Nara said, stopping at a small dome. It has been adjusted for human needs. Inside, the air was cooler but still dry. June saw a sleeping area, a desk with strange devices, and a small room that must be the bathroom. Everything was made of a smooth, sand-colored material. "Thank you," Jum said, setting down his bag. "It's very nice." Nara pointed to a small blue container on the wall. "This is your daily water allotment, for drinking and cleaning. Use it wisely." June looked at the container. It held maybe 2 liters of water. On Earth, he used that much just for his morning routine. "That's all?" he asked before he could stop himself. Nara's dark eyes widened slightly. "Yes, it is the same amount every adult receives. Is it not enough?" June quickly nodded. "Of course. Thank you. Rest now. Tomorrow I will show you our water recycling systems." Nara left, the door sliding shut behind her. Alone, June explored his new home. The bathroom was strange. Just a small room with a hole in the floor and a tiny sink with no faucet. When he pressed a panel on the wall, a few drops of water came out. Enough to wet his fingertips. How do they shower? He wondered aloud. Then he noticed a bottle of clear gel. The label had Aridi symbols and English words. "Body cleaner, no water needed." June sighed. This would take some getting used to. The next morning, Nara arrived early. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Yes, thank you," June lied. The truth was he had barely slept. The bed was hard, the air too dry, and he was thirsty all night. "Good. Today I will show you how we survive on Eridus." They walked through the city to a large dome. Inside, machines hummed quietly. "This is our main water processing center," Nara explained. "Every drop of water used in the city comes through here and returns here." June looked at the complex system of pipes and filters. "It's impressive." "It must be. Without it, we would die." Nara's voice was matter-of-fact. "Our ancestors nearly did, many times, before building these systems." She led him to a display showing numbers and moving dots. "This tracks all water in the city. Where it is, how it's used, who uses it." "You track every drop?" June asked, amazed. "Of course. Water is life." Nara looked at him strangely. "Do humans not value water?" "We do," June said quickly. "But on Earth, water is more common. We have rain, rivers, lakes." Nara's expression didn't change, but her voice grew softer. "You speak of things that sound like myths to us. Water falling freely from the sky. Water flowing on the ground where anyone could take it. It's not a myth. Look." June pulled out his tablet and showed her pictures of Earth. Rainy cities, flowing rivers, ocean beaches. Nara stared at the images. Other Iridians gathered around, making soft clicking sounds of disbelief. "So much water," an older Iridi whispered. "Exposed to the air. Unprotected. Is this real?" Nara asked. "Or computer images?" "It's real," Jum said. "Most of Earth is covered in water." The Iridians exchanged looks. June couldn't read their expressions. "And yet you came here, to our dry world," Nara said finally. "Why?" "To learn, to share knowledge. Our planets are different, but we can help each other." Nara seemed to consider this. "Perhaps, but there is much about humans we don't understand." After the tour, they ate a meal of dry, nutrient-rich wafers. June missed juicy fruits and vegetables. Even the drink was just a few sips of slightly sweet liquid. That evening, back in his quarters, June felt tired and overwhelmed. Everything here revolved around saving water. Even the air was recycled to capture moisture from breath. He looked at his water container. It was still half full. Enough for a very small drink, and maybe to wash his face. I can do this, he told himself. It's just different, not impossible. But as he prepared for bed, he realized one thing he hadn't considered. How was he supposed to use the bathroom with almost no water? On Earth, this simple daily activity used gallons of water without a second thought. I'll figure it out tomorrow, he muttered, falling into an uneasy sleep. He didn't know that tomorrow would bring the biggest cultural shock yet. June woke up with his mouth dry as sand. His first night on Eridus had been rough. The air in his room felt like it was pulling moisture from his body with every breath. He sat up and reached for his water container. Just a few small sips to wet his mouth. The cool liquid felt wonderful, but he forced himself to stop. He needed to save water for the rest of the day. His body felt heavy with the need to use the bathroom. He had avoided it last night, unsure of how the Aridi system worked. But now he couldn't wait any longer. June walked to the small bathroom area. The hole in the floor seemed simple enough, but there was no toilet paper, no flush handle, and barely any water. He found a container of strange wipes with Aridi writing and a rough translation. Body cleaning. Use minimal moisture. Well, here goes nothing, June muttered. Using the bathroom was awkward, but he managed. When he finished, he looked for some way to clean the waste. He pressed different panels on the wall, hoping something would happen. Finally, water sprayed into the hole. Just a tiny amount, not nearly enough to wash away everything. There must be more to it, he said, pressing more panels. Suddenly, a larger amount of water rushed into the hole. Not as much as an earth toilet, but enough to do the job. June sighed with relief. He used a few drops of water to wash his hands, then changed into fresh clothes. The Iridians had given him a special suit that would help his body stay cool. It felt strange against his skin, like a second layer that breathed. June was just finishing getting dressed when his door slid open without warning. Nara stood there, holding a device in her hands. Good morning, June. I brought the schedule for today's. She stopped mid-sentence. Her large eyes grew even wider as she stared past him into the bathroom. The sound of water draining could still be heard. What did you do? She whispered. June turned, confused. I just used the bathroom. Nara rushed past him and looked into the hole in the floor. The water had drained, but the evidence of its use was clear. Her body went completely still. Then she spun around to face him. Why are you she screamed, her voice higher and louder than June had ever heard an Aridi speak. June stepped back, shocked by her reaction. I wasn't wasting it. I was just using the toilet. Using water to remove waste. Nara's voice shook with emotion. Do you know how precious that water is? How many days it takes to purify that amount? Before June could answer, 2 more Iridians appeared at his door, drawn by Nara's shouting. What happened? Asked an older male Iridi. The human. He flushed his body waste with clean water, Nara said, her voice now a horrified whisper. The newcomers made clicking sounds of shock. One of them pressed a panel on the wall, and June heard a soft alarm begin to sound. Wait, June said, holding up his hands. I don't understand. How else should I clean the waste? The older Aridi looked at him with an expression June couldn't read. You shouldn't create liquid waste at all, he said slowly, as if explaining to a child. Your suit reclaims body moisture. The waste collector processes solid matter without water. More Iridians were gathering at the door now, all staring at June. But humans can't. We don't. June felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. How could he explain human biology to these water-conserving aliens? Nara seemed to regain her scientific composure. She held up a hand to quiet the others. This is a biological difference we did not anticipate, she said. Humans must eliminate liquid waste regularly. Their bodies do not recycle internal water as ours do. The crowd murmured. Some looked disgusted. Others seemed fascinated. An important-looking Aridi pushed through the crowd. Is this true? He asked June directly. Your species wastes water from inside your own bodies. June stood tall, trying to maintain his dignity. Our bodies work differently than yours, he said simply. On Earth, we have enough water that using it this way isn't considered waste. The crowd fell silent. The tension in the air was thick. Then, the important Aridi said slowly, "We have much more to learn about each other than we thought." June didn't know it yet, but this embarrassing bathroom incident would change everything about his mission on Eridus. The rest of the morning was very uncomfortable for June. The important Aridi, who turned out to be Han, the head scientist, called an emergency meeting. June sat in a round room with 8 Aridi scientists staring at him. "We must understand human waste processes," Han said. His voice was calm but firm. Our research on Earth biology was clearly incomplete. June's face felt hot. Talking about bathroom habits with aliens was not what he had expected from his first full day on Eridus. On Earth, we use water to carry away waste, June explained. Our bodies can't recycle all the water we drink. We need to release it regularly. The scientists made notes on their devices. One of them raised a hand. "How much water does a human release each day?" she asked. June shifted in his seat. "About 1 to 2 liters, depending on how much we drink and how hot it is." The room filled with clicking sounds, the Aridi version of ghasts. "And this water is just lost?" Han asked, his large eyes wide with shock. "On Earth, it goes through cleaning systems and returns to rivers or oceans," June said. "Nothing is really lost. The water cycle keeps bringing it back as rain." Nara, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. Her initial horror had been replaced by scientific interest. "Fascinating. Your species evolved with so much water that your bodies never needed to develop internal recycling systems. How often must you release this water?" another scientist asked. "Several times a day," June admitted. More clicking sounds filled the room. Han stood up and paced slowly. "This presents a problem. Our facilities were not designed for such wasteful biology." June winced at the word wasteful. It wasn't his fault his body worked this way. "I can try to drink less," he offered. "No," Nara said quickly. "That would harm your health. We must adapt our systems instead." Han nodded. "Nara is right. You are our guest, and we must accommodate your biological needs." He turned to another scientist. "Dai, work with the engineering team to modify the humans' quarters." Dai, a younger male Aridi with lighter skin markings, nodded. "I will start right away." Han turned back to June. "Until then, we will provide you with a special container for your liquid waste. It will be collected and studied." June tried not to look horrified. "Studied?" Nara stepped closer. "Yes, every aspect of human biology is valuable data. If we understand how your body processes water, we might learn new conservation methods. Or ways to help humans waste less," another scientist added. After the meeting, Nara walked with June back to his quarters. Other Iridians they passed stared openly at him. Word had spread fast. "I apologize for my reaction this morning," Nara said quietly. "I should have realized your body works differently." "It's okay," June said. "I should have asked more questions before using the bathroom." Nara tilted her head. "This is why exchange programs are important. Books and videos can't prepare us for real differences." When they reached his quarters, Dai was already there with tools and materials. "I will install a special system for you," Dad explained. "It will collect your liquid waste separately and measure it precisely." Jun tried to smile. "Thank you. The water-wasteful ape needs his own bathroom." Jun heard someone whisper as they passed his open door. Nara spun around. "He is not wasteful. His biology is different. Remember our scientific principles before making judgments." The whisperer moved away quickly. "Don't worry about them," Nara told Jun. "Some fear what they don't understand." Later that day, when his bathroom was fixed, Jones sat on his bed feeling tired but relieved. At least now he could use the toilet without causing a planet-wide emergency. A message appeared on his tablet. It was from Mara. Tomorrow, we will begin comparative biology studies. Your perspective on water may help us see new possibilities. Rest well, water-rich friend. June smiled at the new nickname. Maybe being the water-wasteful ape wasn't so bad after all. At least now, they were curious instead of just shocked. A week passed since the bathroom incident. June sat in the engineering lab with Da, looking at designs on a large screen. The two had been working together every day to solve what the Iridians now called the human water problem. This system could work, Da said, pointing to a diagram. It separates solid and liquid waste, then pulls all moisture from the solid parts. June nodded, impressed. That's similar to some Earth systems used in space or very dry areas. But it still doesn't solve the main issue, Da said. Your liquid waste contains too much water to simply throw away. June tapped his fingers on the table, thinking. As an engineer, he loved solving problems. And this was definitely a big one. What if we don't throw it away? He said slowly. What if we clean it? Da's eyes widened. Clean, human wastewater. For what purpose? On Earth, some places clean wastewater so well it becomes drinkable again. Day made a clicking sound of shock. Drink water that was once waste. That is, he paused, searching for the right word. Unexpected. It's completely clean after treatment, June explained. All harmful things are removed. The water molecules are just water again. Day seemed to consider this idea. His initial disgust was giving way to professional interest. Our current systems clean water, but not from that source, he said. We would need to design new filters. June pulled out his tablet and opened files he had brought from Earth. I have designs for water recycling systems used in Earth's space stations. Maybe we can adapt them for Iridius. They worked through the day, combining Earth technology with Iridi materials. By evening, they had a basic design for a new system. This could work not just for you, Day said, looking at their creation with new respect. It could help our whole city save even more water. Nara came to check on their progress. Her role had shifted from guide to research partner as her interest in human biology grew. How is the engineering solution coming along? She asked. Day showed her their design proudly. We're combining human and Iridi technology. It will clean and recycle all types of wastewater. Nara looked at the plans. Very impressive. But will Iridians accept using water that once passed through a human body? The molecular structure of water is always the same, June said. After proper cleaning, there is no difference between rainwater and recycled water. Science says you are correct, Nara admitted, but culture is not always logical. That evening, as they ate dinner in the common area, June noticed how differently the Iridians treated him now. Instead of disgust or fear, many showed interest. Some even asked questions about Earth. Is it true you stand under falling water to clean your bodies? One young Iridi asked. Yes, June said. We call it a shower. How much water does this use? Another asked. About 40 liters for a quick shower. The group made collective clicking sounds of amazement. That's more than an Iridi uses in 20 days, Dad explained to June. June felt ashamed suddenly. He had never thought about how wasteful Earth habits might seem to others. Since coming here, I've learned to use much less, he said. The cleaning gel works well, and I don't miss showers as much as I thought I would. Nara looked at him with something like respect. You adapt quickly for a water-rich species. Back in his quarters that night, June looked at Earth photos on his tablet. Beautiful blue oceans, green forests, and flowing rivers now looked different to him. All that water, used so freely. He wrote in his journal, Day 8 on Iridius, working with Dai on water recycling systems. His engineering skills are amazing. Earth could learn from how Iridians value every drop. When I return home, I want to bring these ideas with me. Maybe my embarrassing bathroom mistake will lead to better water use on both our worlds. As he prepared for bed, using just a few drops of water to clean his face, Jun realized he was starting to think like an Iridi. 2 weeks after arriving on Eridus, Jun received a special message on his tablet. It was from Han, the head scientist. You are invited to attend the monthly water ceremony tomorrow. This is a great honor for an outsider. Nara will explain what you need to know. Jun felt both excited and nervous. He had heard about the water ceremony from Da, but never expected to be invited. When Nara arrived at his quarters, she looked more formal than usual. She wore a dark blue wrap with small symbols that caught the light. The water ceremony is our most sacred ritual, she explained. Only once before has a non-Iridi been allowed to attend. Why me? Jun asked. The council believes you have shown true respect for water through your work with Da. Your recycling system design impressed them. Nara hesitated. Also, they are curious about how the water-rich species views our ways. Jun nodded. What should I do at the ceremony? Mostly observe, but there is one important part. Nara looked very serious. Each participant offers a small amount of personal water to the communal vessel. This water comes from our bodies. A few drops of blood or tears or sweat. Jun tried not to show his surprise. You give your body water. Yes. It symbolizes how we are all connected through water, how each drop we share keeps everyone alive. Nara watched him closely. You are not required to participate in this part. That night, Jun couldn't sleep. He thought about what the ceremony meant to the Iridians, how different it was from Earth, where people let water run freely down drains without thinking. He made a decision. The next day, Nara led him to a large underground chamber. Hundreds of Iridians stood in circles around a central pool of water so small it would barely fill a coffee cup. The room fell silent when Jun entered. Many Iridians had never seen a human before. They watched him with large, curious eyes. An elderly Iridi named Miso led the ceremony. She spoke in the Iridi language, her voice musical and low. Nara translated quietly for Jun. She speaks of the great drought that nearly ended our people, how our ancestors learned to save every drop, how water connects all living things. The ritual began. One by one, Iridians approached the central pool. Each used a tiny silver tool to draw a drop of water from their body. A tear, a bit of sweat, or a drop of blood from a fingertip. They added this personal water to the pool while speaking words of gratitude. Then it was Jun's turn. He felt hundreds of eyes watching him. Nara had said he didn't need to participate, but Jun wanted to show respect. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small vial. Inside was water he had saved from his daily ration over the past week. He had used less each day so he could save these precious drops. A murmur went through the crowd. This was not what they expected. Jun stepped forward and carefully poured his saved water into the pool. The clear drops fell with tiny splashes that seemed loud in the silent room. Thank you for sharing your world and wisdom with me, he said simply. Miso, the elder, looked at him with her ancient eyes. For the first time, Jun saw an Iridi smile. The human understands, she said in English, surprising everyone. Water is life, wherever we come from. After the ceremony, Miso approached Jun privately. Long ago, before you were born, our world had more water, she told him. Rivers once flowed on Eridus, but the climate changed. The air grew hotter. The water vanished. I'm sorry, Jun said, not knowing what else to say. Do not be sorry. Be wise. Miso's voice was gentle but serious. Your world still has water. Teach your people what we learned too late. Jun nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I will. That night, Jun wrote in his journal, Today I truly became part of Eridus. Not because I attended their ceremony, but because I finally felt the sacred value of every drop of water. 3 weeks into Jun's stay on Eridus, alarms woke him in the middle of the night. Loud, high-pitched sounds echoed through the entire city. June jumped out of bed, heart racing. His door slid open. Nara stood there, her orange skin looking pale. "What's happening?" June asked. "The main moisture collectors have failed," she said, her voice tight with worry. 3 of the 5 collection towers stopped working during the night storm. June quickly put on his suit. "How bad is it?" "Very bad. If we can't fix them soon, water rationing will begin. The city only has reserves for 5 days." They hurried through the corridors. Other Iridians rushed past, all heading to emergency stations. No one panicked, but June could feel the fear in the air. At the control center, Han and other leaders stood around a large display showing the collection towers. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The sandstorm damaged the outer filters, Han explained when he saw June. "Without them, the collectors can't pull moisture from the air." Day was already working at a computer. The backup systems also failed. Something in the storm was different this time. The sand particles were finer, getting into places they never reached before. June studied the diagrams on the screen. The collection towers were tall structures that pulled the small amount of moisture from Eurydice's dry air. Even on normal days, they barely collected enough water for the city's needs. "Can I help?" June asked. Han looked at him with tired eyes. "Do humans have better moisture collection technology?" "I don't know if it's better, but it's different," June said. "Our desalination plants on Earth pull water from the air in similar ways." "Show us," Han said simply. For the next hours, June worked with the Iridi engineers. He suggested changes to their filter designs based on Earth technology. The Iridians quickly made the new parts using their advanced printers. "The filters need to be installed on the towers," Daz said when they finished. "But the storm is still too strong for our maintenance robots." "Can someone go out there?" June asked. "Too dangerous," Han said. "The sand would tear through protection suits." June thought for a moment. "What about my Earth suit? It's made for different conditions. It might hold up better." Everyone looked at him. Nara shook her head. "The risk is too great. You would be exposing yourself to harmful sun radiation and dehydration." "I can take extra water," June insisted. "And if it works, it could save everyone." After much debate, they agreed to let June try. They added extra layers to his Earth suit and gave him a special helmet. Most importantly, they gave him a large water container to carry, more water than most Iridians used in a week. "Drink regularly," Nara instructed him. "Your body loses water much faster than ours." June nodded. "I'll be careful." The trip to the nearest tower was hard. The wind threw sand against June's suit like tiny bullets. The heat was worse than anything he had felt before, but he kept going, one step at a time. At the tower, June climbed the maintenance ladder. His hands shook as he worked to replace the damaged filters with the new ones. Sweat poured down his face inside the helmet, and he drank from his water supply often. By the time he finished the first tower, his water was half gone. Still, he continued to the second tower, then the third. Each step became harder. His vision blurred. His mouth felt like paper despite the water he drank. When he replaced the last filter, June's legs gave out. He sat heavily on the platform, too weak to climb back down. He pressed his communication button. "All filters replaced," he managed to say. "Need help." As his consciousness faded, June saw the moisture collectors begin to work again. Tiny drops of water formed on the new filters, catching the hidden moisture in the dry Iridi air. His last thought before passing out was simple. Water truly is life. June woke up in the medical center. His throat felt like sand. His lips were cracked. Tubes connected to his arms, putting fluids back into his body. Nara sat beside his bed, watching monitors. When she saw his eyes open, she moved closer. "You have been unconscious for 2 days," she said. "Severe dehydration. Your human body lost too much water." June tried to speak, but no words came out. Nara helped him drink from a small cup. The water felt wonderful on his dry throat. Did it work? He finally managed to ask. The filters. Yes, all 3 towers are working again. You saved many lives. Nara's voice was soft, but you almost lost your own. Over the next days, June slowly recovered. The Iridians gave him extra water rations to help his body heal. No one complained about this special treatment. His actions during the crisis had earned their respect. When he was strong enough to leave the medical center, Han came to visit him. The council wishes to thank you, the head scientist said. Your quick thinking and bravery helped us avoid disaster. June nodded. I'm glad I could help. But we must face facts, Han continued. This will happen again. Our planet grows drier each year. The storms get worse. Soon, even the collectors may not be enough. June thought about this problem as he rested in his quarters. He looked at pictures of Earth on his tablet. Clouds, rain, and green plants. Something clicked in his mind. When he was strong enough, he asked for a meeting with the council. Han, Nara, Dai, Elder Miso, and 3 other important Iridians gathered to hear him. On Earth, we have technology to make rain, June began. The room went silent. Even the word rain seemed magical to the Iridians. Water falling from the sky. Here on Eridus, one council member asked. Impossible. Not impossible, June said. Difficult, but possible. He showed them designs on his tablet. These are cloud seeding machines. They put tiny particles into the air that help water droplets form. If there is moisture in the air, it can create rain. Our air has some moisture, Daz said thoughtfully. That's what the collectors capture, but not enough for rain. What if we combine your moisture collectors with our cloud seeding? June suggested. We could create a system that gathers moisture in one area, enough to form small clouds. The council members looked at each other. Some seemed excited, others worried. Such a change could affect our whole ecosystem, Han warned. Rain has not fallen on Eridus for generations. It would only be in small areas, June explained. Controlled. We could start with one test location. Elder Miso, who had been quiet, finally spoke. I remember rain, she said, surprising everyone. As a child, I felt water fall from the sky 3 times. It was life-changing. The debate lasted for hours. Some Iridians feared changing their world. Others saw hope in June's idea. Finally, Han called for a vote. We will allow one test, he announced. In the empty valley beyond the city, if it causes problems, we stop immediately. For the next week, June and Dai worked with a team of engineers. They built moisture collectors that sent the gathered water vapor to a central point. Then they added cloud seeding devices from June's designs. On the day of the test, everyone gathered on a viewing platform. The machines hummed in the valley below. Moisture collectors pulled the small amount of water from the air. The seeders sent particles high above. For hours, nothing happened. The Iridians began to look disappointed. Even June worried his idea had failed. Then Nara pointed to the sky. Look, a small wispy cloud had formed above the valley. It grew slowly, turning from white to gray. Then something magical happened. A single drop of water fell from the cloud. Then another, and another. Rain was falling on Eridus for the first time in decades. The small rainfall lasted only 10 minutes, but those 10 minutes changed everything on Eridus. Young Iridians ran into the valley, feeling water fall on their skin for the first time. They danced with their faces turned up to the sky, mouths open to catch the precious drops. Even some older Iridians joined them, memories of long ago rains returning. June watched from the platform, smiling at their joy. Nara stood beside him. You have given us a gift beyond measure, she said softly. It was a team effort, June replied. Your engineers made it possible. In the weeks that followed, the council approved more rain projects. They chose 5 areas where controlled rainfall would be most helpful. Small plants that had been sleeping in the sand for decades began to grow in the test valley. tiny green shoots reaching toward the sky. The Iridians celebrated this rebirth with a special ceremony. Elder Miso invited June to stand with the council leaders. "The human has taught us that old ways are not always the only ways," she announced to the gathered crowd. "For generations, we have survived by taking small amounts of water from the air. Now we learn we can bring the water to us in new forms." Han stepped forward next. "But we must remember the wisdom of our conservation. We will not waste this new gift. Each rain area will be carefully managed. Each drop still counted and valued." June nodded in agreement. In his time on Eridus, he had learned how precious water truly was. He would never see it the same way again. On his last night on Eridus, the Iridians held a farewell gathering. Each person who had worked with June shared a memory or a lesson they had learned. Day spoke of their engineering partnership. "The human showed us that different approaches can solve old problems. Our new waste recycling system now saves 30% more water than before." Nara talked about their cultural exchange. "When I first saw June use water to flush away waste, I thought he was terribly wasteful. Now I understand that humans and Iridians simply evolved differently. Neither way is wrong, just different." When it was June's turn to speak, he felt emotional. "When I came here, I didn't understand how important every drop of water is. On Earth, we let water run freely. We stand under falling water every day just to get clean. But you have taught me that water is life itself, not something to use without thought." Elder Miso approached June and placed a small blue stone around his neck on a cord. "This is the Waterkeeper name stone," she explained. "It marks you as a friend of Eridus who understands our most sacred value. You are the first off-worlder to receive this honor." June touched the smooth stone, deeply moved. "Thank you. I will wear it proudly and remember your lessons." The next morning, June boarded the ship that would take him back to Earth. Nara, Dai, Han, and many others came to say goodbye. "Will we see you again?" Dai asked. "Yes," June promised. "I'm coming back in 6 months with more engineers. Earth wants to learn from Eridus about water conservation, and we have more rain technologies to share." As the ship rose into the sky, Jun watched the Iridi city grow smaller. In the distance, he could see one of the rain test areas, a small patch of green in the vast red desert. 3 weeks later, Jun stood in his bathroom on Earth. His hand hovered over the toilet flush button. So much water, used without a thought. He remembered Nara's shocked face. "What are you?" June smiled and reached instead for the new low-flow handle he had installed. In his apartment, he had already set up Iridi-inspired water recycling systems. Next week, he would present his findings to Earth's Environmental Council. He touched the blue stone around his neck. The bathroom incident that had seemed so embarrassing had changed 2 worlds. Sometimes understanding began with the simplest things, even answering nature's call.